Hello, Wastelanders! In Fallout 4, there is a time for being civilized and giving your enemies a fair fight, and as our Vault Tech betrayed, Institute widowed mother of an abducted child, Nora, can tell you. There is a time for molten hot revenge where you kill everything with fire. Now before you Vaulties go telling me about the golden rule,
do unto others as you'd have done unto you.
I want you to remember that our girl Nora didn't start out like this. Nora was a loving wife and mother, and a practicing lawyer who used her words to solve problems like a big girl. But then, the world ended.
I love you.
Oh my god!
She had to watch her family snatched from her and murdered. Then she found a terminal explaining that her murdered family was used as a Vault Tech experiment. And well, the thirst to rain down revenge on her enemies, like end times brimstone, sort of escalated from there.
Get Kellogg, boy. Take me to that son of a bitch.
Bullets were too fast, knives were too clean, and energy weapons are too impersonal. So what is a young widow with the hot rage of 1,000 sons to do? Answer: purge the wasteland with fire. The problem? Fallout 4 kind of screwed the fire weapons. What we get in vanilla are 1. Flamers, a heavy weapon with 8 energy damage and a mild damage over time burn effect. Pathetic. Number 2, the Shishkebab, a sword that looks so metal but hits like a wet noodle and doesn't actually do fire damage. 3, an Incendiary legendary effect with mild burning damage over time. And 4, we have the thrown weapon, Molotav cocktails, like a weak grenade with lingering flames that do a bit of splash burning damage over time. These weak nods to fire in the vanilla Fallout game are not very satisfying for a girl who wants to see it all burn. Well, you know we're going to fix that. First up, a fire damage overhaul was needed. One strong contender was Cryo and Fire Damage and Resistances by Crimson Knight. If you want a mod that systematically introduces a world of elemental damages and resistances into the equipment and enemies of the game, this is your mod. Here's a peek at what our armors looked like with this installed. Note that the spaces for all damage types are now present, with more of them represented and more modifications available at the workbench. It is an ambitious and immersive mod that could transform your playstyle and introduce new builds. The reason it wasn't chosen was that Crimson Knight's mod seemed to affect mostly vanilla NPCs, enemies, and equipment. We have so many fantastic flame weapon mods to show you today that we needed a more flexible buff to fire. So, in the end, we have turned to Molotav and Flamer by Pendan. The reason we chose Molotav and Flamer is that it changed a few fundamental mechanics of flame weapons. With Pendan's mod, Molotovs have been intuitively rebalanced to do less initial explosive damage and more fire damage over time. Flamethrowers, like the humble vanilla Flamer, have the same effect as the Molotov, leaving behind a still burning fire to damage enemies over time who come in contact with it. Wait, it wasn't always like this?
Why?
There's more. The damage for the vanilla flamer was raised from 8 base damage to 12, and the default nozzle range was extended to 95, which all sounds still like meager numbers. But consider this, flamers also have been changed from energy damage to a combination of fire damage and explosive damage. Considering that few enemies have a designated resistance to fire, this change means that flamer damage is effective against most enemies beyond the early game now. Great start. But Nora wants her targets to die terrified and screaming. Molotov and Flamer has her covered there too, and this is possibly the biggest game changer. Being lit on fire now has a weak fear effect that causes all but robots, feral ghouls, synths, and the most powerful living enemies to avoid it, terrified and screaming. Asbestos-lined armor still prevents catching fire, and now power armor does too, for pretty common sense reasons. So now, fire acts the way it should, and so do the enemies who encounter it. For a little more fire damage enhancement, we are also stacking on Better Burning Damage by Raumfliege. This mod ensures that burning effects aren't resisted by energy resistance, and consecutive applications of burning damage no longer stack more time, instead they stack more damage. These changes affect burning damage from energy weapons and the Incendiary legendary effect as well. To make triple sure that fire weapons are doing actual fire damage, we are adding in Cyrolator Flamer Shishkebab Fix by Elha. Simply put, Cryolators and cryo effects now do cryo damage. Flamers, Shishkebabs, robot weapons, and flame traps all actually do elemental damage. I think we've got our bases covered. A few less essential additions you'll also see here are MD Wolfe's Flamer Fuel Rebalanced by Minngarm, which changes the Flamer Fuel from a high consumption single unit ammo to a canister that depletes by percentage. Think Fusion Core and a Gatling laser. We are also using Jester's Better Fire to improve the visual fire effects in the game, and Flamer Retexture by DMI TTY33 because I prefer a black and red Flamer color scheme over the yellow and red vanilla one. Now that we've covered all that, let's take a look at the toy store of weapon options. First, a vanilla classic. Ashmaker, the legendary Incendiary minigun quest reward received from Hancock's enforcer, Fahrenheit, in Good Neighbor.
Here,
The Incendiary effect gets it on our list by adding fire damage with a small damage over time burn effect that isn't too impressive power-wise. But visually, it lights up the air with molten tracer rounds like the 4th of July. Thanks to Legendary Flame Paint by Invoker Grey, when we paint Ashmaker with the Creation Club Flame Paint Job, the Legendary Explosive effect is added as fire damage, and now Ashmaker is the OP gun we all wanted it to be, painting everything in flaming bullets and style points galore. Laser Gatling fans will be pleased to know that if you happen to have the Creation Club Flame Paint, the same can be done with the Energy Weapon variant, as if it needed to be even deadlier. The beta or gamma wave tuner attachments can add burning damage to energy weapons, and there are other ways to add legendary effects to weapons that won't cost you any real world money. But this mod seemed too on theme for me not to mention. For more legendary fun, vanilla flamers don't get much more legendary than Sergeant Ash. Brought to us in the Far Harbor DLC, Sergeant Ash has a 20% chance to cripple the target's leg, and it spreads those broken legs across enemies like butter. With the changes made by the Molotav and Flamer mod, Sergeant Ash is more than just crowd control. Watching your limping enemies try to flee in fear as they stew in the lingering fire damage of your napalm is a thing of beauty.
I'm here to kill you and take what's inside your head.
That you cannot have.
The Courser at Green Tech is usually a tough fight, and Nora wasn't over-leveled there, proof that our fire damage overhaul really has made a difference. Honestly, Sergeant Ash could carry your entire playthrough, but there are so many more options. Like our next one, that the next-gen update put into everyone's hands, the Heavy Incinerator. Always a big damage dealer, now that damage includes fire and Molotov-esque lingering flames. As with the vanilla flamers, upgrades are simple and easily attainable. The incinerator lobs balls of explosive napalm at enemies with a pronounced gravity arc, but like artillery, once you have it sighted in, the sheer pyrotechnic destruction you can rain down on enemies from above is almost laughably devastating. Another new weapon that the next-gen update gifted us with in the Makeshift Weapons pack is the Flaming Baseball Launcher. All the weapons so far have been heavy weapons, and this is no exception, essentially a leaf blower that shoots sleeves of modified baseballs and lights them on fire as they exit the barrel. The baseball launcher doesn't show fire damage in the stats, but it will light enemies on fire like an incendiary legendary weapon if it hits them, so it makes the list. The fact that it litters the ground with flaming baseballs like torches that you can collect and use again doesn't hurt either. I just love that Mo Cronin ordered this baseball launcher for use in his brutal reimagining of baseball with the requirement that it be able to kill onlookers in the stands. As a side note, the baseball launcher can be given a flame paint job, but it apparently isn't the Creation Club flame paint that the legendary flame paint mod affects, because no extra explosive damage was added. You're seeing its regular performance. Dog meat, on the other hand, oh, he's been buffed. It's time for our first weapon that was added by a non-Creation Club mod. The Deadly Commonwealth expansion by Night Raven is a permanent in my load order because it buffs enemy factions and I like a challenge. A Children of Adam faction boss added by Deadly Commonwealth expansion will drop a unique flamer called The Glow. It adds radiation damage, like an irradiated legendary, and it fires plasma ammunition instead of the regular flamer ammo. The Glow is affected by Molotav and Flamer's changes and melts human enemies like they were made of marshmallow. You'll have a tough fight on your hands to get it, but once you do, even Kellogg better watch out.
You murdered my husband. Took my baby. You're a dead man.
Now that fire does what it should do, that fight is kind of anticlimactic, am I right? But Nora wanted her revenge flambe style, and she's not done serving it up. Our next selection is one of Degenerate Dak's masterpieces, the Incendiary Launcher. A lighter weight, lower damage missile launcher, the Incendiary Launcher makes this list because it splashes puddles of searing fire to do damage over time after the initial missile impact, much like a Molotov cocktail. The Incendiary Launcher fills a need for a less cumbersome missile launcher. It can be found on Raiders, Gunners, and Brotherhood forces, and has 3 uniques that can be found in locations for each of those factions: the Nefarious Napalmer, the Commando, and the Black Box, respectively. Since a fire weapon build has few true long-range options, the Incendiary Launcher could play a key role in your next fire playthrough. Up next is a unique flamer design created by Tumba Jumba as part of his Raider Power Armor mod. You can find this weapon, aptly named the Ass Burner, on a Raider boss at Leighton Towers. We'll add a mod by Exoclips so more attachments can be mounted to the Ass Burner on top of a few unique features that it has baked in. For one, it's held like a rifle, but the Heavy Gunner perk benefits it like a vanilla flamer. It has a legendary effect of 50% more damage to humans, and it has a nozzle you can turn up to increase fire rate / fuel consumption, which is a pretty immersive extra. It does do several forms of direct damage, including fire, and it does appear to gain the lingering fire and fear effects from Molotov and Flamer.
Peekaboo!
If you like the Ass Burner and the Raider armor that comes with it, you'll also want to pick up its sequel of sorts, Tumba Jumba's recent Cyrolator and Heavy Flamer armor mod. You've been looking at the Heavy Flamer armor on Nora. More on that in a bit. Weapon-wise, the mod introduces a version of Tumba Jumba's Cryolator-esque Ass Burner flamer design called the Pyrolator. Ass Burner and Pyrolator look nearly the same, but they are different. The Pyrolator has more attachment options, a different balance of damage types, poison damage can be added, there is no fire rate valve, and the Pyrolator is not a heavy weapon. You are looking at a unique version called Friendly Fire that a gunner boss drops. According to the mod description, it is supposed to have the Frenzy legendary effect, but it doesn't appear in the weapon text, and I can't report seeing frenzied enemies. I can confirm that the fear effect from Molotov and Flamer does apply. Pyrolators can be painted yellow, green, or blue, and they have a barrel attachment to shoot molten rounds like bullets if you're looking for a flamer rifle. Now that we're on the subject of rifles, we'll take a look at a couple of interesting fire damage attachments. Degenerate Dak's attachment pack has added an incendiary barrel option that adds actual fire damage and a burn effect to the radium rifle from Far Harbor. The radium rifle, with its added radiation damage, was always one of the best uses of 45 ammo, and throwing some fire damage into the mix only emphasizes the damage diversification it was already doing better than most weapon types. The lingering damage over time added by the Incendiary barrel is visually well done and immersive for a flame weapon playthrough, proving you really can have it all. Another attachment that gives us a compelling fire option is the Plasma Flamer barrel for the plasma rifle. Powerful but lighter weight than most flamers and benefiting from perks like Rifleman, the Plasma Flamer is yet another way to bring a flamethrower to a gunfight. The fire enhancements of lingering environmental fire and mild fear effect given to other flamers by the Molotav and Flamer mod do work when you equip the Plasma Flamer attachment, so as long as you're willing to spend for some expensive plasma rounds and give up some of the reach of traditional flamers, it is a lightweight and relatively effective crowd control. Plus, the green flame is pretty cool too. Doesn't seem to hurt the grass though. I guess we're still waiting on that landscaping overhaul. Let's talk melee. There are more options than you would think if you use cryo and fire damage and resistance is restored to transform heated weapons like the super sledge or baseball bat from energy damage to fire. The most iconic fiery melee weapon though is probably the Shishkebab that players get by recovering it from the raiders at Saugus Ironworks.
If she tries to leave, kill her. You must be pretty strong to make it here.
For some reason, even though fire damage is specifically present in the game code, Bethesda almost always chose to have fire weapons deal energy damage. The Shishkebab was no exception, until mods like Cyrolator Flamer Shishkebab Fix by Elha. Thankfully, this fix turns Shishkebab damage from energy to fire, and it also turns Cryolators to cryo damage, as the name suggests. So the underwhelming Shishkebab now becomes a little more potent by dealing damage that few enemies have a resistance to. There are a number of mods to up the damage of the Shishkebab if you need more. One of my favorites, Shishkebab Quad Flame Jet by Ice Blue 4040, restores a quad jet upgrade for the Shishkebab that was found in the game files. And if that doesn't do it for you, we're about to go much bigger. Dax Attachment Pack returns to give us a modification for the venerable Fat Man launcher. The mini nuke is iconic, but maybe kills too fast for a player who wants their revenge to burn like a whiskey chaser. Not to worry, a shoulder-mounted slingshot can basically fire anything when you think about it, and DAC lets it do just that. From mines to spikes to bundled missiles, of particular interest today is the Molotov 6-pack option. Combined with the changes from Molotov and Flamer, the Molotov 6-pack ammo allows you to carpet bomb enemies in an inescapable inferno for the last few agonized seconds of their lives. Word to the wise, make sure all the Molotovs will land far from you, because you probably get the picture. But let's do that again to be sure. Okay, one more time for instructive purposes only. This is for safety. Okay, weapons are fun, but let's talk protection. Those who think revenge is a dish best served hot are going to have to get pretty close to the flames, because Molotov and Flamer made power armor flame retardant. Power armor is a good protection for those who are about to turn the battlefield into a lake of fire. A few options stand out as particularly on brand here. Taking a cue from Forged Raider boss Slag's look, we could adopt the crude and cruel Raider aesthetic, no mods necessary, and Raider power armor has fire resist options. An obvious choice, available free to all since the next-gen update, is Exo 3 Hellfire armor. Specifically engineered for Incinerator troops by the Enclave and boasting S-tier protection stats, this is the elite choice. But from a purely stylistic perspective, Tumba Jumba's Raider power armor exudes more burn-it-down energy than an uncapped oil well. Stats on this most elite of Raider-designed armor are just above the T-45, which seems appropriate. Maybe power armor isn't your jam. Let's walk through some of the other apparel/armor options that would suit your next fiery rampage across the Commonwealth. We'll start with a gunner look and the heavy Flamer armor that Nora is wearing. This Burning Man armor and its matching helmet is a unique variant of the Heavy Flamer armor added by Tumba Jumba's Pyrolator and Heavy Flamer armor mod. The mod injects heavy flamer armor and pyrolators into gunner leveled lists, and this Burning Man unique is dropped by the same gunner boss as the unique pyrolator Friendly Fire. The armor has very respectable stats, including some designated fire damage resistance, but you'll notice that the term heavy armor is quite literal in this case, with the helmet and asbestos lined armor coming in at a combined 62.5 pounds. The armor with its gunner markings can be painted red or green. Our next item is a kind of weapon accessory hybrid, so we're showcasing it here. M2 Flamethrower Redux by EvTital brings a traditional flamethrower to Fallout 4 with multiple attachments, backpack tanks, and uniques. You'll be able to customize your look from Raider to Gunner to Vault Tech Security. The M2 is technically a heavy weapon, but is relatively lightweight, and with the changes from better burning damage and Molotav and Flamer, the M2, which drops from Raiders at Saugus Ironworks and from Gunners, is surprisingly effective. Also on display is the Gas Bomb, a damage-triggered fiery explosive trap from Fallout New Vegas and added in the Wasteland Imports mod by Mikado2116. I think you're going to have fun with this. I know I did. If a rowdier Raider look is for you, the M2 Flamethrower Redux mod also adds some unique Raider helmets into the game that drop from Forged Raider Pyros in the Saugus Ironworks. They offer a respectable 20 fire resistance, and there are 3 versions of the helmet. We are seeing the dead end version here. Another Raider option is the Welding Mask with visor up or visor down, which features actual fire resistance and comes to us from the extensive Raider Clothing mod by Francois Haggis. I previously featured the mod in more detail in my Raider Revenge Raider Faction Overhaul video, so take a look at that if you're interested in Raider fashion. For the penultimate Raider Pyro gear, we turn to the fanatically fire-obsessed Raider faction of the Sunflare cult that was introduced to the Commonwealth in the unique Raider Gangs and Patrols mod by Precision Tacos. The Sunflare cult takes flame resistance more seriously than any other faction, and Nora will sport a few of its striking looks for you here. First up, with 50 fire resistance, the Sunflare Tank Top Under Armor. The mod stays economically sized by reusing existing textures and has no CBE version, but it still manages a distinctive feel and cleverly accommodates CBBE characters by not showing skin in the typical trouble spots. The Sunflare Dark outfit has a whopping 450 fire resist and a dangerous look that complements Nora's spite-filled Black Widow's heart. The flashy red mandala on the back of the outfit is the Sunflare's symbol and gives this faction a menacing presence. But I promised staggering fire resistance, so for those wanting the highest fire damage resistance available anywhere I have ever seen, the Sunflare Cape provides 1450 fire resist. It is a full body outfit, so you have to commit, but it does also offer intelligence and perception bonuses, 100 radiation resist, and the ability to make an entrance that could upstage the Red Death. This is where the more reasonable pyromaniacs among you might think 1450 fire resist is putting too much of a focus on a pretty rare damage type. And to that I say, yeah right, they're reasonable pyromaniacs. But in case you need it, for flexibility to round out your resistances with additional armor pieces, I recommend the Sunflare Tank Top or Dark outfit paired with a Sunflare Bright Skull headdress that offers agility, luck, 100 radiation resist, and 666, probably no coincidence there, fire resistance. All that, and you'll also look like you are bringing the Purge to Boston. Needless to say, if you want to take this gear from the Flamer and Shishkebab wielding group of maniacs who wear it, you are going to have a nasty fight on your hands after all the fire buffs that we have added. And there you have it, boys and ghouls. A list of suggestions to help you descend upon the Commonwealth like the Second Great War. Whether you want to systematically mete out ruthless, white-hot revenge like a gunner professional, or you yearn to welcome Doomsday with a pyre of gasoline-soaked corpses like a priest of anarchy, you know what they say, dress for the job you want. Or was it, speak softly and carry a large napalmer? In any case, I think we have you covered. But before you go kill it with fire, help me spread the Fallout fever by smashing that like button, and I will see you in the next one.